Hi, and welcome to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson at the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today our guest chef is Chef Andrew Morrison. Andrew?
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, several years ago, fell in love with food, did some catering for quite a while. Back in the mid-90s, decided I wanted to expand my horizons, came to the Culinary Institute of Canada. Spent a couple years here, which was fantastic. Learned a lot, and then went out into the world, did some more catering, institutional, jumped around a little bit. Got hired on as chef at Dolly by the Sea.
Nice.
Back around 2002, spent 7, 8, 9 years there for a while. Got some 4 Diamond Awards and things, and it was great. Back around that time, got hired on, and now I teach the culinary.
Now you're teaching. What do you teach here at the college?
I teach the lunch service at the college, and I also do international, regional, and I do evolution of cuisine.
Okay, talking about the classicals into the modern.
Exactly, yeah, how things have changed over time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And your program in the lunch, Lucy Maud, is a la carte service, kind of a high-end type of luncheon atmosphere for the students?
It is. We try to keep it busy, try to keep the people in, keep the students hopping. We usually probably 30, 40, 50 people a day.
Nice.
And it is a higher end atmosphere. Great experience for them.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Right on. Looking excited. So what are we doing today? What do we got planned for today's show?
Well, we're going to do a few different things. I want to do something seafood. I'm a big fan of mussels, big fan of clams, big fan of lobster, oysters, things like that. But I wanted to do this whole show from the concept of leftovers. Everyone has the parties, the people are over at the house, you've got half a pot of mussels left after everyone's full and passed out and gone home.
Right.
So what do you do with the leftovers?
Okay.
Everyone thinks chowder. So I want to do something a little more interesting, a little bit different from the chowder. So what I'm going to do, we have some mussels and clams. I'm going to do some fritters that we're going to make, and we're going to fry them off and do a bit of a dip for them, sort of a chili aioli.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move on to some oysters and lobster, which we're going to combine and do a version of a po' boy sandwich.
Awesome.
Where it's kind of deep fried and
kind of a lunchy type style item that's kind of uses the seafood.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So what are we going to start with?
Okay, so we have our mussels and our clams, putting them on our seafood cutting board.
Okay.
This is something they make these days. Any hardware stores carry them, kitchen supply stores.
Right.
Color coded, depending on raw products for dairy, for vegetables, for cooked products, things like that. They're all color coded. This is our seafood one.
Okay.
Cross contamination is very important.
Right.
Whether it's cooked or raw.
Because
any
there's
proteins.
a lot of allergies and stuff like that out there that we'd want to make sure that we've maintained
Absolutely.
some kind of continuity.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with these two, but what I want to do is I am going to cut these up.
Okay. So would you leave them whole at all, or would you recommend that we chop them up?
Definitely recommend you chop them up, because what this is going to be is all these ingredients are going to be mixed together into a batter. And if you leave them whole, your batter's not going to stick together. It's not going to combine. So you need everything kind of broken up a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm just going to chop them up a little bit. What I'm using for this, couple different clam varieties on Prince Edward Island. Either find hard shell or soft shell clams. The soft shell would be the razor clams, the steamers with the long necks that protrude out of them that a lot of people use. These are hard shell clams, basically a smaller version of quahog.
Quahog?
Yeah, and these work really well. They're a little bit denser, a little meatier, so they work really well for this.
And the cooking process for them and steaming them is basically the same. Whatever beer or wine you have, or seawater or whatever, you just steam them until they're open. And
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'm going to start combining everything.
Okay. Just going to turn that down a little bit.
We'll get this stuff out of the way. Where I got the idea for doing this, the fritters, was from some students we had here at the Culinary Institute. Now, we get quite a few students every year from the Bahamas.
Okay.
Down around Bermuda, different places like that. And one of their delicacies or staples down there, I guess, would be conch fritters, which is a large aquatic snail. And it's something that's very common, and it's made all over.
Right.
So I had a few students made it for me and fell in love with the idea.
Okay.
So I wanted to apply it. Conch isn't readily available that much at PEI.
Right.
So any seafood at all is going to work for this.
Okay. So what is a fritter?
A fritter is basically any kind of a protein, any kind of meat, any kind of seafood mixed into a batter with some vegetables. Basically, it's like a fish muffin.
Okay. And
That kind of a batter.
Deep fried. Okay.
And then we're going to fry them off,
Okay. And we're using a shallow pan frying here.
We are going to shallow fry, yes.
But if you trick is to kind of deep fry this, so you need the oil very hot, but you want to make sure that it doesn't get too hot or burst into flame while we're doing it either, right?
So what I think is important next, we're going to get rid of this cutting board.
Okay.
I'm going to get rid of my gloves and clean up my knife.
Okay. And we'll just put this on here. It's very important that when you're doing this at home that you keep an eye on your fat or oil while it's heating up, because if it gets too hot, it could start to smoke and then could be a bit of a fire hazard. So make sure that you keep an eye on it. If you've got a deep fat fryer thermometer, you want it about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So keep an eye on it, very low heat, and be very cautious of what's going on.
And that's an excellent point. If you are going to do this at home, it is a little bit dangerous. In the pan you're going to use, make sure the oil doesn't go more than a third of the way up.
A third?
A third of the way. As soon as it starts to cook and bubble, it will rise a little bit.
Okay.
And you want to make sure there's lots of room for it to come up without going over.
All right.
Okay, so what we have next, our seafood is in there.
Yeah.
Have some green onions.
Okay.
We're going to add, that's just about a quarter of a cup or so.
Quarter cup.
Have jalapenos just to give it a little personality.
Okay, right on.
Wake it up a little bit.
Jalapenos are good. You could use bell peppers, red, whatever vegetables you kind of have in the garden, or fennel or whatever in this. It's kind of up to you and your flavor.
Exactly.
Right?
Everything's going to work in this. Garlic, you can add shallots if you want. You can put any types of peppers. You can put any types of onions.
Okay.
It's completely interchangeable. So we have our vegetables in there, the jalapenos, the green onions, the garlic.
Yep.
Now, I have a little bit of baking powder here that I'm going to mix in with some flour. It's very important to do this. Distribute the baking powder throughout the flour as you're going, just to make sure it doesn't stay lumped up in there at all.
So what's the baking powder going to do?
Baking powder, once we start to fry them, it's going to make them expand a little bit.
Kind of a leavener.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Rise a little bit.
And we got a couple eggs here too. We're going to add some eggs to the mixture. And
yeah, absolutely. So the 2 eggs, we can add our flour. And our 2 eggs. Always, I know this is covered quite a bit. When you're cooking, always crack your eggs into a separate container.
So you don't get any shells.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Make sure they're nice and clear and everything else.
Beat those up. Mix. So you pretty much just put all your ingredients, your clams, mussels, chopped up, with your vegetables and eggs and flour and baking powder all in the bowl.
Exactly.
And stir it up.
Everything is in there all at once.
Okay.
Still have a couple things to add. I just want to get this combined a little bit for now.
It's getting a little hot there. We'll just turn that down. So you don't want the oil too hot. If the oil is too hot, what's this going to do to the batter when we put it in?
What's going to happen if the oil's too hot is they're going to burn on the outside before they actually cook on the inside.
Right.
Now these will take a little while because of the flour, because of the egg mixture the whole way through it.
Okay.
They will take a couple minutes probably per side.
Okay.
To cook.
All right, and we can see the smoke rises. That's a little bit hot there right now. You got some cumin here too?
Yep, we have a little bit of cumin. That's just going to give it a little bit of exotic flair.
Okay.
Yes, go in there. We can mix that in. Also, I'm going to add just a little bit of the juice from the mussels.
Okay.
I'd steamed the mussels off before. I saved a little bit of the juice. And
Just from the pot from steaming them?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's got tons of flavor in it.
Okay, so how do we know when the batter's ready, Andrew?
As soon as everything's combined, you have to be really careful. Because it has flour, don't overmix it.
Okay.
You don't want this to come out tough. Just combine everything until it's incorporated and you're good to go.
Just evenly distributed. And what's the texture we're looking for? So we're looking for a muffin texture, so something that holds together but doesn't stand on its own.
Exactly. You don't want it to be too dry that it's going to completely hold its shape. It should have a little bit of movement to it.
Okay.
So if you could hand me a couple of spoons there, please.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is ready. This doesn't have to go in the fridge or rest or anything. You mix this and go.
Absolutely. As soon as you've got the baking powder incorporated, it starts to activate right away. You can start cooking it.
You want to start cooking it? Yep. You got your oil up to about 350 degrees?
Yep, exactly. Now the size is very important. You don't want to go too big or they will overcook on the outside before they cook on the inside.
Okay.
So I usually go good heaping tablespoon.
Okay.
Should be a good size, so I'm going to use another spoon just to slide that off.
Slide it in so it goes in like a...
Yep.
All right.
So
Cool.
we're going to
So
a
they
couple
should
of those
just
on the go.
sizzle just like that.
Exactly.
And if you got a candy thermometer or a deep fat fryer thermometer at home, just check the temperature of the oil before you start. 350 degrees Fahrenheit is what we're looking for. So we're going to cook a few of these off, and when we come right back, we're going to do some aioli and some po' boys, so don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson at the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today with Chef Andrew Morrison. Today we're doing mussels and clam fritters. We've got them fried off. Now we're going to do some oyster and lobster po' boys. So what do we need for that, Andrew?
Exactly. Okay, so what we're doing, getting back to the concept, today we're using up some leftover things.
Okay.
It's not often you have a lot of leftover lobster when you
Right.
have a party. But what goes first is always the claws, always the tails, things like that. But
Yeah.
you've still got the knuckles, you've got the bodies. This is a great way to use those up.
Okay.
If you have the time the next day, there's lots of meat in the bodies. You tear them apart and take it out. Same with the knuckles, crack those. So we've got the lobster pre-cooked, ready to go.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do is the oysters.
Okay.
We have these pre-shucked. If you ever have oysters left over, always shuck them and freeze the meat. Don't freeze the oyster just the way it is in the shell. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And you want to save the juice that's in it as well when you freeze it with it, so that it's protected a little bit.
It protects it and it keeps the flavor in there as well.
Okay.
Now this sandwich, basically, it's very popular down in the southern United States, in Louisiana, especially around New Orleans.
Lots of extra oysters down there.
Lots of oysters around down there for sure. So we're
Okay,
going to start
so
off,
warm pan, a little bit of butter.
warm pan, a little bit of butter.
So do we want to brown the butter or we want it hot? We just want it.
Just basically melt it down. What I
Okay.
want to do with these oysters is I want to cook them to the point just till they solidify. I don't want to overcook them.
Okay.
I'm just going to add them in just till they harden up a little bit. Then we're going to add a little bit of wine. Turn that down a little bit.
Okay. So it's a texture thing with oysters. A lot of people don't like them raw in the half shell, but if they just saute them off a little bit, it firms them up. And if it's a texture thing,
Saute them off, or you can grill them, or you can bake them. In this case, what we're going to be doing is mix them with our lobster. We're going to make a little bit of a beer batter using some good local beer. And then we're also going to shallow fry those off, similar to the same way that we did the fritters
okay.
in the beginning. Okay, so you can see those started to harden up
Firm
a little bit.
A little bit, yep.
So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of white wine.
Okay. Add a little bit of extra flavor.
Exactly. Something that you'll notice we didn't do with the fritters
Yep.
ahead of time is we didn't have to season them. We didn't have to add salt. The seafood itself has lots of salt in it. It's all saltwater fish. The oysters have lots of salt. The lobster has lots of salt, so we don't have to add a lot of seasoning to this.
All right. So it's all
Okay.
natural,
Exactly.
which is great.
Okay, so the oysters are done. So what I'm going to do is my lobster meat.
Okay. And this is all the bodies and leftover knuckle meat and everything that's left
Exactly.
over from eating the rest of the
Yeah,
lobster.
something great to do the next day. You're bored, you get up, maybe had a couple beer the night before.
Right.
Lobster bodies, get some friends over and start cracking them.
Start cracking
Okay.
lobster.
Oysters, we're just going to add in with our lobster meat.
Okay.
Maybe set that aside if you don't
Yep.
mind.
Set that over there.
Okay, so seafood is mixed up. The next thing to go, if you can hand me another
Another
bowl there,
mixing bowl
please.
there?
Yep.
So we're just going to set that over to the side and just kind of let it rest.
Exactly.
While we put the batter together.
Yeah, and this is really, really simple, this batter. There's only 3 ingredients you really need for this. What I have here is some flour,
Just all-purpose flour.
just all-purpose flour. I'm gonna
About
use,
how much?
for this amount, I'm using about half to 2/3 of a cup.
Okay.
And for this, it's just ratio. You want to be half the amount of cornstarch, which is what I just added now,
Okay.
to flour. So 2 to 1.
2 to 1 flour to cornstarch.
Exactly.
Okay.
Combine those. And what you want to do is grab your
You wanna
favorite
make sure
local
that they're
beer.
equal distributed like we did with the baking powder,
Exactly.
right? And then we
Right.
add beer. No eggs or anything in this recipe?
No eggs in here at all, so it's almost more of a tempura batter. It comes out lighter and it's a little bit crispier that way.
Okay. And any of your favorite beer?
Any of your favorite
Gahan
local
or-
beer.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes you can make with this when you're adding the beer into a beer batter is adding it too slow and beating it and beating it. And eventually, if you develop the gluten in your flour, it's going to come out a little bit tough.
Okay.
So feel free to add the beer right in and mix it up as quick as you can.
And you could add more flour too if you needed to if it got too thin on you.
Absolutely. So where we're at right now, with the flour and the cornstarch, you have to mix this really well, make sure the cornstarch is completely combined. We're almost at a pancake batter.
Pancake batter?
Kind of consistency right now.
So something that trails the batter. If you pick some of it out, you want it to kind of leave a little bit of a trail behind it, or
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add enough of my batter
To the lobster and oysters, just
To the lobster
so we're
and
not coating
oysters?
them in flour or anything like we would if we were doing fish and chip.
No.
Fish and chip type of thing.
Nope,
This is
there's
the
enough,
batter.
enough flour in there just the way it is.
Okay.
and just going to toss that around.
And we're just using the natural salts that are in the seafood as well. We're not really adding extra seasoning to this.
No, and there's tons of flavor in the beer as well. You don't really have to add any extra salt to this as well.
Okay.
Okay, now what I'm going to do, this is mixed up.
Yeah.
Have the oil. Once again, and right now I'm going to dispel a bit of a myth. As it's like we did the fritters to begin with.
Yeah.
We shallow fried. We're going to shallow fry here as well.
Right.
As long as your oil is at the proper temperature, it's not going to absorb the fat. Shallow frying or deep frying like this is considered a dry heat cooking method, similar to roasting or baking.
Okay.
It's not a wet heat or a moist heat cooking method like you would think of with, say, poaching or steaming.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Right. Because the temperature of the fat that we refer to as dry heat kind of thing. And
exactly. So, it's just the heat from the oil is going to cook it. It's not going to absorb into it at all. Yeah, so I'm just going to put those in. Once again, same idea we talked about the first time.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't overload your pan with oil.
Right.
If you don't have a lot of confidence, you can dial 911, set your phone beside you just in case.
Just, and then all you get is the one button.
Hit that one last button, you're good to go. Slotted spoon, please, if you don't mind.
Yep. Okay, so you don't want to overload your pan either when you're doing your fritters or your po' boys because you don't want to cool the fat down too much.
Exactly.
You want to keep it at the 350 degrees Fahrenheit temperature.
It has to stay at that temperature the whole way through.
So don't overload it, just kind of let it do its thing.
Yeah, exactly. So this is probably going to take maybe a minute, minute and a half per side.
Okay.
The lobster was already pre-cooked.
Right.
The oysters we already sauteed, so we don't have to worry about our seafood cooking.
Right.
We just need it to brown.
We just want just to brown up and the batter to cook.
Yeah. So those are holding together nicely.
Great.
This is
perfect temperature. That's how it should look too when you do it at home. It shouldn't be spittering and spattering. It should just be nice sizzling and bubbling going on.
Exactly. It's going to make a great sandwich.
So this is going to go into a sandwich. So what do we need for the sandwich? You can use, I think we're going to use baguettes or something today, but you could use Kaiser rolls or...
We are going to use baguette today. You can use traditionally any type of a crusty bread on the outside, as long as it's got some crunch and texture to it. So those are getting pretty close.
Okay.
You're just going to need a towel to set them on.
All right. Just to absorb the extra, just put them on a clean kitchen towel or paper towel or whatever you have. You just to absorb some of the extra fat when they come out.
Okay. So those are pretty much good to go.
Okay.
As soon as they get a nice golden brown color, that's what we're looking for.
Right. So for this, we need a spread of some sort for this sandwich, and I think we talked about we're going to do an aioli of some sort.
Yep, next thing we're going to do an aioli. Basically an aioli is just a flavored mayonnaise, and one of the key ingredients has to be garlic.
Okay.
That's it's traditional in an aioli. You have to have the garlic in there.
Okay, so those are fried up. We're going to get everything set here for making the aioli. When we come right back, we're going to do aioli and make some po' boy sandwiches. So don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson at the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today with Chef Andrew Morrison. Today we're doing mussel and clam fritters. We've got our lobster and oyster po' boys done up.
Right.
And now we're going to do what's called an aioli.
Exactly.
Right?
Fancy name for mayonnaise.
Great.
Aioli is basically a mayonnaise. It has some extra flavoring in it. It's a little bit savory. It has some garlic in it. And it can be used as just a dip by itself or as a base for something else, which we're going to get into today as well. Because this is going to be dual purpose. I'm going to do two different things.
Okay.
So in order to make this, what I'm going to do is start with a couple of egg yolks. Okay. You can do this in a food processor, big mixing bowl. Now what I want for these, I just want the egg yolks.
Okay. You don't want the whites.
Don't want the whites. I'm going to very carefully separate them.
So what happens if you get whites in your yolks?
You have a much greater chance of it's going to split. It's not going to turn out on you.
Okay. And splitting is when the oil and the eggs don't get together and work together properly.
Exactly. Because what happens is the egg yolks are basically all fat. You're mixing it with the oil, which is basically all fat, and they tend to get along really well.
Right.
Yeah, the egg whites not so much.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got our two egg yolks in there.
Okay.
Thank you. Now we're going to start with our flavoring ingredients. We'll get those in next.
Okay.
So I've got about a tablespoon of lemon juice.
Okay.
Got a little bit of garlic.
Okay, so it's just chopped up fresh garlic.
Just chopped up fresh garlic. We've also got some white wine vinegar. Same idea, a couple tablespoons. Add a little bit of whole grain mustard.
And just all in the mixing bowl together, and then we'll start whisking with the egg yolks. So how does the mayonnaise start to happen?
Now what's going to happen is the egg yolks are going to emulsify. It's going to mix everything into it, and as we slowly add the oil, it's going to keep mixing in with the egg yolks, and it's going to thicken up. And so we'll end up with a mayonnaise type of a dressing when we're done.
Right. So the trick here is to slowly add the oil, not too quickly.
Very slowly add the oil. Now, I'll mention this now, a couple things I'm going to put in there. I have a little bit of mild chili powder.
Okay.
That's going to make it a little bit smoky. It's going to give it a little bit of flavor.
Okay.
I've also got ghost chili powder.
Ghost chili powder.
Ghost chili powder. This is the new king of chili peppers. It's taken over from habaneros. Actually, it has more than twice the heat of habaneros. So depending on how...
so use it very
carefully.
gingerly.
And be careful with your hands afterwards, for sure.
Okay. Don't rub your eyes or anything like that.
Not at all. I'm going to get this mixing up and very slowly start to add the oil.
Okay. So mix all your ingredients together and then very slowly add in the oil so that the egg yolks get a chance to absorb the oil and making your mayonnaise base. Now you've got the white wine vinegar in there as well, and that's going to help loosen it up a little bit, add a little bit of tartness to it.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. Exactly. So everything's going to be balanced. The fat between the acid and the flavorings and everything else is going to work well. For this amount, I'd probably add about 3 cups of oil.
3 cups of oil.
To turn out, we did this ahead of time, so we have one made.
We have one done up. So
show you what that looks like.
Ta-da! This is what it looks like when we're done.
Yeah. Once everything is all combined, there it is.
Okay.
This, just the way it is, we're going to use this as the dip for our fritters.
Right.
Now, like I said, we're going to do a little double duty with our mixture here.
Okay, so we're using this for two applications.
Yeah, exactly. Our whole concept of leftovers.
Yeah.
It also works with the sauce as well.
Okay.
So what I'm going to use as a base for a tartar sauce to go with our po' boy sandwich. So I'm going to use the aioli mixture. We're going to start with that.
Right.
And I have some dill pickle.
So just normal dill pickles. We're just going to slice them.
Regular old. It seems to be a staple in tartar sauce.
Yeah, gives it some nice flavor.
Exactly.
And we've just used the aioli that we made. So be very careful when you're using chili peppers or ghost peppers, especially, that you don't touch your eyes or you wash your hands properly, because it's the oils in there that cause the damage in the heat, right? So we just want to make sure that everybody's very aware of that. And the ghost peppers tend to have an extremely amount of heat in them. So be very careful using it if you're not used to peppers.
Okay, next we're going to add a little bit of minced red onion.
Okay, so red onion. You could use shallots or white onion if you wanted to with this.
Or green onion.
Or green onion as well.
Yeah, anything you like. The thing about the red onion I like is it also gives it a little bit of color.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, just a quick small dice.
Yep, we'll throw that in. We have some capers, I believe.
Capers are here, yes, sir.
Yeah, capers.
So what are capers? For
Capers,
those of you that aren't familiar with it?
Sure, they're just the pickled bud of a Mediterranean rosebush. They get them when they're really small, and they put them in a vinegary kind of brine, and they go really well with anything like this, any sauces, classical smoked salmon, things like that. They're used as well.
They get a little bit of natural salts to them too, so
right.
We don't have to add a lot of extra salts to this, because there's lots of natural salts going on in the foods today.
Yeah. A little bit of chopped fresh tarragon.
Tarragon.
Add that in. Don't chop it up too small. They say if you chop your herbs to the point you can't tell what they were when you started, you went too far.
You went too far. You got to be able to identify them.
So now we have our tartar sauce.
Okay.
Colorful. Very nice.
Looks great.
Yeah. So I think at this point we have all our components.
Taste that just for fun.
I think you should.
Just to see how the ghost peppers turned out. Nice balance.
I went easy on you.
Yeah, it's got some personality, but it's not burning my throat out. It's good.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we have everything ready to go. We're good to plate.
All right. So what do you want? What would you like?
Let's start with the fritters.
The fritters. Okay. So these are the leftover mussels and clams that we had, that we made the fritter batter out of. And we've got the
have the aioli.
The aioli that we made going into the dish. It's kind of a dipping sauce, so it's more of a. You could use it for a veg dip too if you wanted to, I suppose. Could you?
Use it for just about anything.
Anything you wanted to.
It's great. We have our fritters. I also have some cilantro for garnish. We're just going to put these around the outside.
So cilantro is something you normally find in a salsa, but with the chili-ness in the aioli, it's kind of a nice balance.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I might do, just being garnished, I'm just going to tear some of the leaves off. The cilantro you can put right in the batter as well if you happen to be a big cilantro fan. Just some people either tend to love it or hate it. So this is
chop it up and put it in the batter as you were making it back in the beginning.
Yeah, and if you're not 100% confident that everyone's going to like it,
too bad.
Chop it up, exactly. Just sprinkle a little bit around the outside. So we've got a few lemon wedges.
Okay.
You stick those around.
Beauty. I notice your lemons don't have any seeds in them.
They have no seeds in them.
Nice.
All right, so that's the first one.
Okay, so we have that. Then we have a little bit of a salad here for kind of pre-done up.
For the po' boy, just something to have on the side of the plate. So these are really fun to put together. Like I say, we're going to use baguette today. Any type of a crusty roll is going to work really well.
Yeah.
We're going to go with a little bit of arugula.
Arugula.
Nice and peppery and nutty. Goes really well with something like this.
Okay.
We'll put that on.
A little bit of texture, flavor, and some color there with the fresh tomato.
Yeah, a little bit of sliced tomato.
And then the lobster and oyster po' boys that we fried up.
Exactly, the lobster and oyster mixture. If you have seafood fans in your family, they will go crazy if you make this for them.
Right on. And then the tartar sauce that we made from the aioli.
Yeah, so we're going to go with a little bit of that right over top.
Wow, that's good enough for lunch.
And that, once again, if you want to put a little bit of lemon.
A little bit of lemon garnish.
On the side of the plate, just to fancy it up a little bit.
Beautiful, Andrew.
That's just about it.
Thanks very much. Now we know what to do with our leftover seafood.
Absent anything other than chowder.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for joining us today in today's show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Check out our website, kitchenuncovered.com. Until next time, I'm Andrew Nicholson at the Culinary Institute of Canada. Thanks for watching.